Good afternoon, guys. My name's John Hendrix, and I'm alongside here with Brendan T. Boylan. Over here with Saints News Network, we are previewing the Saints and Broncos game. I'm live here at Empower Field at Mile High. Brendan, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you? How's the weather out there?
It's cold. It's chilly. It's 37 degrees right now. We're about an hour away from game time, so it's been a interesting time. So for everybody out there, got to keep my mask on so you don't get to see my ugly mug today. So, Brendan, let's get into it. Obviously, the big news in this game, the storyline, and I mean, we had it last week, right? It was Taysom Hill. This week, no quarterback for the Broncos. All three of their quarterbacks. What happened, and how we get here?
Talk about a bizarre kind of turn of events last night, right? So Jeff Driscoll, quarterback for the Denver Broncos, he tested positive for COVID-19 on Thursday, and contact tracing and all the great things that the NFL implemented to be able to pull guys out that may have been in close contact. All that came back and eliminated all three quarterbacks for the Denver Broncos because they were deemed high risk, close contact without wearing masks. And obviously, we don't know if that was in practice or in team meetings, but all three of them ruled out. They were all pulled off the field with about 15 minutes before practice on Saturday, if I believe correctly. So, kind of a wild thing. We have a guy who gets called up from the practice squad to start for the Broncos today, but not a quarterback, a wide receiver who played at Wake Forest. He played 3 years at quarterback before making that transition to receiver his senior year. And he had a pretty good senior year at receiver, bringing in over 70 catches for 1,000 yards and 4 touchdowns. But he hasn't thrown a touchdown pass in a meaningful game since 2017. And he made this Denver roster as a wide receiver. So a big day for Hinton. I'm sure he did not think he would ever be able to say I was starting quarterback in an NFL football game, but that's kind of where we are now. And honestly, John, I think this is a first, at least for me, since I've been covering the NFL, but it might be a first for the NFL in general.
Yeah, I mean it's very unprecedented what's happened, and you look at this whole entire game, and we know what the lines moved in Vegas. I mean, at one point, I think the Saints were a 5.5.5 point favor, and with all this news, now they're a 16 point favor in Vegas, and the over under 36 and a half, and this type of game, the Saints obviously going in there not necessarily playing a quarterback and not knowing what to expect. I mean, these are the types of games that kind of worry you as a Saints fan, right? So I mean, like, what are we expecting out of this Broncos offense? What are some of the keys that they're going to have to do to get out of here with a win?
Well, I think the biggest thing is you have to keep it almost as vanilla as possible because, like I said, this isn't a case where there was a guy on your practice squad who was running scout team quarterback. This is a guy who is playing a completely different position. Now, playing wide receiver, you're going to understand routes and you're going to understand things to that nature, and you do understand the playbook because it's not like they plucked them off the street this week. But like I said, I've never seen a situation where it's we have an emergency quarterback that's got to come in and play that was a wide receiver. So it's going to be very vanilla. Like you said, when you have no game tape on someone at all, that is a super scary thought. And you have to also know that this is an athletic kid. He's a wide receiver. So he's going to be able to break the pocket if he has to. I could see a lot of running the ball. Now, that doesn't work in Denver's favor. Is they're in the bottom half of the league in rushing yards per game against a Saints defense that's in the top 3 in the league in rush defense. So they're going to have to find a way to move the chains on the ground and try to eliminate a lot of that pressure because this Saints front 7, and particularly their defensive line, has been playing lights out over the last few weeks. It's got to be a nightmarish situation if you're the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, look, and I think for me, it's just anticipate it, right? I think the Broncos looked really good on the ground last week. They lit up the Miami Dolphins. I think they finished with 189 rushing yards. I mean, Melvin Gordon looked good, and so they have some tools there. Obviously, I think that obviously they're gonna have to get creative with some of their play calling. And let's flip the side of the ball. Look, we know it's Taysom Hill's second start, right? And obviously, I think that's gotten lost in the shuffle with everything that's happened. But look, Taysom looked really good last week. I think when we talked about it in the pregame last week, that we talked about how catering to lean on some of your best players. But look, you're not going to have Teron Armstead or Andrew Pete. Armstead tested positive for COVID-19, so he's out of this game, and Pete was already out because of a concussion. So, offensively, maybe it's a little bit more challenging for the Saints to move the ball. Obviously, you're going to have Nick Easton fill at left guard. You're going to have James Hurst likely filling at left tackle. But, what do the Saints offensively have to do against a pretty good run defense on the Broncos and a very good pass defense? They're top of the charts in the sacks right now.
I think that's the scary thing, what you just said. You're missing half of your offensive line, the left side of your offensive line, those two key starters, both Pro Bowl caliber guys. So how do you go offensively and try to make Taysom as comfortable as possible, knowing that he's not going to be as well protected from the blind side? Well, the positive is on the right side of the line, particularly Ryan Ramczyk, the best run blocker in the league the last 2 years, according to Pro Football Focus. So I expect the Saints to do what they did to the Atlanta Falcons there in the second half of the game, and a lot of Latavius Murray in this game, a guy who can run between the tackles. He's going to pick up those tough yards for you, and then that's going to open up some things. And John, as you mentioned, it's only Taysom's second start, and we didn't get to see a real rhythm and flow offensively with a lot of receivers, but he did key on in on Michael Thomas a heck of a lot in his first start. And Alvin Kamara went without a reception for the first time in his NFL career. So for Taysom, you're going to try to get the ball out of his hands early and get it to his playmakers, whether that's Thomas on a slant, whether that's Kamara out of the backfield, whether that's Kamara lining up in the slot. But we have to know the Saints are as healthy as they've been offensively. That certainly favors having a guy like Taysom Hill, and we can't discredit what Taysom can do running the football either. So for the Saints, you're going to try to make it as easy for Hill as possible, get the ball out of his hands, and try to get Kamara a little bit more involved because, believe it or not, as extraordinary as Alvin has been this year, he's now gone 3 games without reaching over 100 scrimmage yards.
Yeah, he's been limited in practice all week with the foot injury. That's kind of been nothing new, right? So, I think obviously he doesn't have to be the killer player that he has in the first half of the season. And, going back to your point about Michael Thomas, I mean, he had 12 targets last week and 9 reception, gotten over the century mark. And, it's good to see him get going. Guy I look at is Jared Cook. He's been in a really big slump lately. You get Josh Hill back. That's a huge upgrade for the Saints offense. You're not going to have Deontay Harris back there fielding kicks and returns. You got rookie Marquez Callaway that's going to be handling that type of duty. So, look, I mean, you got to feel good about offensively what the Saints are going to be able to do and being able to move the ball. But you think about the defensive side. I mean, every week I think we've seen this unit improve more and more. And most people are asking, is this defense for real? I mean, you got 8 sacks on Matt Ryan last week. And, obviously you don't know what to totally expect out of Denver's offense. But defensively, you're getting Marshawn Lattimore back. Quan Alexander's fitting in with the team extremely well. Him and Demario Davis are great. I mean, if I'm the Broncos, what am I going to do to beat the Saints defense right now?
You're going to have to attack the parts that we just talked about on the left side of the offensive line. You're going to have to plug gaps quick. And the defensive tackle is going to be very vital in this game, especially when you have a guy like Taysom Hill who's a running quarterback. But when we typically talk about a running quarterback, you're talking about a guy who's super effective in getting outside of the tackle box and being able to run to the outside. Taysom, very unique in the sense where he is quick. He's ready to run over you, but he also has that elusive ability. So plugging up those A gaps is going to be huge for the Denver Broncos, and you're going to have to force Taysom Hill to beat you with his arm. Get the Saints into 3rd and long, disrupt some rhythm early, and make Taysom beat you with his arm because we know what he can do with his legs, but he's still an unproven passer despite having a super high completion percentage. Put him in the top 10 in NFL history last week for highest completion percentage in your first career start.
Yep, absolutely. And, I mean, again, you look at defensively for the Saints. Again, you're just not knowing what to expect out of Denver. So if you're the Broncos, how are you going to move the football on the Saints defense that, again, has been extremely well, on the field, and they just seem like they're getting better? And let's ask the question, is this Saints defense for real?
I think they are. You look back at the beginning of the season, John, and there was a ton of national media analysts that said this Saints defense has the potential and could very easily be better than their offense, which a lot of us thought was insane. This is the most talented Saints offense on paper that we've ever seen, perhaps. But no, that Saints defense, if you took away, and we wrote about it in articles throughout the early goings of the season, if you took away the penalties, if you took away the mental mistakes, the Saints were still a top 10 defense in yards. They were not getting takeaways, perhaps, but you saw some of the things that was going to make this defense special. And now all of a sudden, the back end, they're on point. They're not making those mental mistakes. You're not seeing so many of those 15-yard defensive pass interference or those silly holding penalties on third down that gives the team a first down. You're seeing them settle in a little bit. I think getting Quan Alexander was fantastic. I know it's a small sample size. We've only seen him for 2 weeks, but what Sean Payton said and him filling in and feeling this is a guy that's been with the team throughout the season, though he's only been here for 2 weeks, that speaks volumes to the type of player that Quan Alexander is. Now, to the other part of your question with the Denver Broncos, how are they going to move the ball? This is a really interesting narrative with the quarterback situation, like we already mentioned. But this also could be very fun for an offense because you are literally playing backyard football. This is something where after school with your friends, you're drawing up plays in the sand and you're just ready to go. We have no idea what to expect here. As analysts, I don't think the Saints defense knows exactly what to expect, but they're going to have to get creative. They also have a guy, a running back that is an emergency quarterback, or we thought would serve as the emergency quarterback in Freeman. So you might see a little bit of who's going to throw the football. We don't know. They have to get creative against a really solid Saints defense. But unfortunately, if you're a Broncos fan, it's looking like it's going to be a really long afternoon offensively.
Yeah, look, and I think for me, it's some of the pre-snap penalties, some of the things that you might see in the preseason, right? Some illegal shifts or false start penalties, just not being – I think that's going to be some of the things that play into this game, obviously. And, look, I think, going back to the defense, I absolutely believe they're real. And I said it before the season even started. This was a top 10 defense on paper and the top 5 ceiling. And, look, I think they're proving it. And, again, it's not how you play at the beginning of the year. It's how you play down the stretch. It's how you play in the playoffs when it's pretty much one and done for you. So, look, I think it poses an interesting challenge. Even if it was Drew Lock playing, even if it was any of the other quarterbacks, I still feel like the Saints defense would still be able to make this a long day for Denver. And I think I saw a few questions that get to them. I think one of them asked if Jameis was going to play today. I don't believe we'll see Jameis unless it's maybe victory formation or anything like that. But, again, you just hope that Taysom Hill stays healthy. That's the biggest thing, right? And so you're not going to have Drew Brees out there for a little bit. And I think target date might be Kansas City would be probably a good indication. But, look, his second big test, he's got Atlanta next week, then you got Philly on the road. So it's not just home games or anything. This is going to be a huge test for Taysom Hill, and you want to see him do extremely well. So let's get into maybe some score predictions and seeing how this game's going to go, Brennan. Who wins, why, and by how much?
Well, I think to just piggyback off of your last point before we go into score predictions, the other thing you have to remember, this is the first time an NFL defense has true film on Taysom Hill as a starting quarterback in a meaningful game. Obviously, he's got snaps and he's got film on him in preseason at quarterback, but that's nothing like playing a meaningful football game. So we'll see how Vance Joseph and a really good coached Denver defense responds to Taysom Hill in his second start. But I do see the Saints winning this game. I thought, regardless of who was playing quarterback, I thought the Saints were going to come out on top. But Denver is not an easy place to play at that altitude, especially in your second career start. So I could see Taysom struggle a little bit, and that's why I said earlier he's really going to have to rely on that run game with Latavius Murray, Alvin Kamara. But I'm going to take the Saints in this game 24-7. I think the defense continues to play exceptionally well, and I think the Saints offense shows you a couple things that makes you feel a little bit more confident with Taysom Hill as a passer today. That's going to be vital for the Saints to come out on top. So, again, I'll take the Saints there 24-7.
Yeah, look, and I think for me, one of the things that I remember hearing or seeing Vic Fangio say, the Broncos head coach, he talked a lot about Sean Payton as a play caller. And, look, he said that he's getting even better, and that's a scary thought, right? He's already a good play caller, but he's only going to get better. So, look, it's going to be interesting to see what kind of wrinkles he throws because, again, that defense of Denver can be a real problem. And, look, the Saints, they're not good against the Broncos. Sean Payton's 0-2 against them. Obviously, there's a bitter, salty taste from that last time they met. Saints are only 2-9 against the Broncos in their franchise history with wins in, 88 and 1994 when Jim Everett and Torrance Small lit up the airs for them. So, look, I think when you look at it, the Saints are a hot team. They got to keep ahead of Green Bay. They got to make sure that they're still holding on to that number one spot. And so I'm going to take them. I think it'll be maybe a little bit closer just because of some of the ways that the Broncos might get some early wrinkles, but I expect the Saints to pull up in the second half and just kind of make the adjustments, right? So I'm going to take the Saints 28, Broncos 17. Any parting shots, thoughts?
I think what you said with Denver being able to throw some wrinkles and throw some things at Taysom Hill is going to be huge. As I mentioned before, this is a really well coached defensive minded head coach. So it's going to be really interesting to see how Taysom adjusts in his second career start. And now football related, but happy birthday, Dad! I hope you have a great day.
Awesome. Yeah, and then I see the question about asking if they could borrow Trevor Siemian. Yeah, he's inactive for today's game, but unfortunately, I don't think because of the way things worked out that there's nobody that could have came in for the Broncos to be able to do it. I know they even asked some of their offensive assistants, said, "Hey, we'll suit up and do it," but the league said no. So really weird, and I think at the end of this all, it's going to be really interesting. And definitely happy birthday to your dad as well, Brendan. So, look, we'll enjoy the game. It's Fox 3:05 kickoff, less than 45 minutes away now. So, you guys enjoy the game, and as always, tune in to our halftime show with Alfie Mosley and Bob Rose. On behalf of Brendan Boylan, I'm John Hendrix for Saints News Network. Check us out at Saints News on Twitterverse and then si.com/NFL/Saints. Enjoy the game, guys. Get some of this free